The Galactic Empire ruled the stars with pride. Their armies crushed thousands of planets. Their ships covered the sky like a dark sea. No one had ever challenged them and survived. When the first human fleet entered Empire space, the commanders laughed. The human ships were small. Their numbers were few. No dreadnoughts, no giant carriers, just a handful of strange, sharp-looking ships moving slowly toward Empire territory. Admiral Xorath, one of the Empire's best, stood on his command bridge and smiled. "Send a warning shot," he ordered. "Let these little creatures run back to their home." Empire warships charged their plasma cannons. A huge blue beam shot across the void. It was powerful enough to destroy a moon. But something strange happened. The human fleet didn't move. They didn't dodge. Instead, their ships shimmered, like water in sunlight, and the plasma beam passed through them without touching anything. Admiral Xorath frowned. "Charge again," he said. "Full power." Another shot. This time, 3 beams together. The human ships stayed still. Again, nothing happened. No damage. No explosions. Then, without warning, the human ships responded. No bright lights. No massive missiles. Just a soft hum. A sound that Empire sensors could barely detect. And then, Empire warships began to explode. 1, 2, 10, 30 ships were gone in seconds. No alarms, no warnings, just silent deaths, one after another. Empire officers ran across the bridge. Screens showed chaos. "We're under attack." But from where? "We can't lock on." Admiral Xorath shouted, "Fire everything. Fire blindly if you must." Empire ships rained fire in every direction. The black sky lit up with plasma, rockets, lasers. But the human ships simply floated forward, untouched, unharmed. It was as if the Empire was fighting ghosts. Inside the Empire's command room, fear began to grow. Xorath slammed his fist into the console. "Impossible," he hissed. "No technology can be this strong." An officer turned pale. "Sir, our dreadnoughts, the flagship Iron Wrath, it's gone." Xorath stared at the report. His mind refused to believe it. Iron Wrath had taken 100 years to build. It was supposed to be invincible. It was the pride of the Empire. And now, destroyed in less than a second, by ships smaller than an Empire patrol cruiser, the human fleet finally sent a message. It was short, only 6 words. "You attacked first. We respond." That was all. No threats. No demands. Just a cold reminder. On the battlefield, the remaining Empire ships tried to retreat, but something blocked their engines. Some invisible force held them in place, like insects trapped in ice. The humans moved through them slowly, carefully. They weren't chasing. They weren't hunting. It felt almost merciful. Admiral Xorath knew this battle was lost. But still, his pride burned. He gave the final order. "Activate self-destruct. We will not be humiliated." One by one, Empire ships exploded by their own hands. Better to die than to fall into human hands. As Xorath's ship broke apart, his last thought was not of anger. It was of fear. If this was just a small human fleet, what terrible power was hiding behind them? The blackness swallowed him. And far away, hidden in the deep shadows of space, the real human armada, the true fleet, waited patiently. They hadn't even moved yet. The news of the first battle spread like fire across the Galactic Empire. No one could believe it. Admiral Xorath was dead. His mighty fleet was destroyed. And by what? A tiny human fleet that looked more like a scouting group than an invasion force. At the Empire's War Council, the high commanders shouted at each other. They must have used forbidden weapons. No ship can do this without black magic. They cheated. We must crush them now. Panic hid behind angry words. For the first time in centuries, The Empire felt fear. Supreme Commander Varkan, the most powerful military leader, stood up. He slammed his fist on the steel table. "Enough," he roared. "We are the Galactic Empire. We do not lose to insects." He ordered a second attack. This time, not just one fleet, but five. 5 full fleets, armed with dreadnoughts, orbital cannons, and storm generators. Enough firepower to destroy a planet in minutes. They moved fast. Thousands of Empire warships jumped into the sector where the human scouts floated silently. On every screen, on every battlefield, the order was the same. Annihilate them. No survivors. The Empire fleets charged like angry beasts. Cannons fired. Plasma storms filled space. Missiles screamed toward the human ships. But once again, it was useless. The humans didn't move. They didn't even raise shields. The Empire's strongest weapons touched nothing, passed through them like shooting through smoke. Empire captains shouted in confusion. "Adjust targeting. Fire again. Use the storm generators." Nothing worked. Then the humans responded. One by one, Empire ships vanished. No explosions, no screams. Just gone. As if they were never there. A few survivors watched their comrades disappear in silent horror. And then, without a sound, without a threat, the human ships turned and drifted away. Deeper into Empire space. Back at the War Council, Supreme Commander Varkan watched the disaster unfold. His face turned gray. "What are we fighting?" he whispered. No one had an answer. Desperation filled the Empire's high command. They sent spy drones to intercept human communications. They needed to understand this new enemy. After hours of secret listening, they captured a short human message. "We are not the real fleet. We are scouts. Observation only. Engage at will if necessary." The words struck like a hammer. Not the real fleet. Not even a battle group. Just scouts. The Empire realized the horrible truth. They were losing to humans who weren't even trying. Fear spread faster than orders. Soldiers started deserting their posts. Some smaller colonies sent secret messages to the humans, offering surrender before the true fleet arrived. Even some Empire captains quietly powered down their ships, pretending their systems were damaged. At secret meetings, generals spoke in low voices. "If these are only scouts," one whispered, "what will the full human armada do?" No one dared answer. The Emperor himself, the ruler of 1,000 systems, ordered the preparation of the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Planet Breaker Cannon, a weapon designed to destroy entire worlds. If humans wanted to play with fear, the Empire would answer with terror. But deep inside, even the Emperor felt a cold doubt. If humans were holding back, if this was only the beginning, then maybe, just maybe, even the Planet Breaker would not be enough. Meanwhile, in the blackness of space, hidden beyond the Empire's sensors, the true human fleet stirred. Thousands of massive ships, weapons glowing with a strange, silent energy, engines ready. The scouts sent one final transmission back to them. Phase 1 complete. Empire response weak. Awaiting Phase 2. And still, the humans waited. Patient, silent, letting the Empire crumble by its own fear. The real war had not even started yet. The Galactic Empire had always ruled with an iron fist. Fear was their weapon. For centuries, they crushed rebellions, silenced enemies, and forced entire civilizations to bend to their will. But now, a new fear was growing, one they could not understand. The small human fleet had already caused chaos, but the true fleet hadn't even arrived yet. Despite this, the Empire's commanders felt a deep, cold dread creeping in. The Emperor sat alone in his throne room, staring at the endless stars outside his window. For the first time, he felt a chill he had never known. Was this the end of the Empire? Back at the War Council, panic had spread like a disease. Some officials had begun suggesting they send a fleet of their own to surrender to the humans, to beg for mercy before it was too late. Others argued that this was a trap, that the humans were waiting for them to make the first move, to give them the advantage. But no one had any answers. Commander Varkin stood in the center of the room, looking out at the silent void. The latest reports from the front lines were clear. The humans were not afraid. They weren't just waiting. They were provoking the Empire. Another fleet, Varkin muttered, staring at the data on his screen. They've launched a second wave. One of the officers in the room quickly spoke up. But why? The first wave was already enough to make us crumble. What more do they want? Varkin slammed his fist on the table. They want us to break. They want us to turn on ourselves. The idea of defeat was so strange to them that it didn't make sense. They had never lost. But now, everything was different. The human ships were somehow invincible, their weapons unknown, their tactics unpredictable. And yet, they hadn't even shown their true strength. Commander Varkin clenched his jaw. Send word to every sector. No one is to approach them unless ordered. The moment they try to attack, we destroy them. We'll show them what it means to face the Empire. But even as he spoke, there was doubt in his eyes. The human fleet was unlike anything the Empire had faced before. Every new report made it clearer. These humans had something that terrified the Empire. As the hours passed, messages began arriving from various sectors of the galaxy. Many of them were encrypted, but the ones that weren't had disturbing content. One from a colony in the outer reaches of the Empire simply said, "We surrender. We know what's coming." Another, from a former ally, read, "We've heard the rumors. The humans are not just invincible. They are something else." And then there was a final transmission, one that came through loud and clear, breaking the silence of the War Council room. It was from an Empire general, stationed near one of the most heavily fortified regions of the Empire. "They're coming. The real fleet. The one you all feared. They have shape-shifting ships, and they're not using weapons. They're using fear itself." The room went silent. The message was not one of defeat. It wasn't just a warning. It was something far worse. The general's voice shook as he spoke. "They can make you see things that aren't there. They can make you feel pain. And when you're afraid enough, when you're broken, they destroy you. Not physically, but in your mind. I don't know how they do it, but I am begging you. Retreat, or we're all dead." Varkin's face turned pale as he listened to the message. It was clear now. The humans didn't need to conquer the Empire with their weapons. They could conquer with fear alone. And then a strange thing happened. An encrypted message from the Emperor's personal communicator buzzed. The message was short, but it froze everyone in the room. Phase 2 complete. Fear has already broken them. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were breaking the Empire piece by piece without firing a single shot. They were turning the minds of the Empire's soldiers into their battlefield. They were making them afraid, making them doubt. And with each message of fear, the Empire's strength seemed to weaken. Varkin turned to his officers, his voice hoarse. "They're playing with us. They're turning us against each other." He reached for a data pad and quickly began typing. He needed to act fast. His people were on the edge of panic, and that meant they could do anything. "Prepare the final weapon," he ordered. "Activate the planet breaker cannon." But even as he gave the order, he felt a small part of him questioning the decision. Would it even be enough? Would they be able to stop the human fleet once it arrived? For the first time, the great empire was starting to crack. And the humans, they hadn't even truly attacked yet. They were still holding back, waiting, letting the fear spread through the empire until it was too late. The real fight was still to come. But now, the empire was already defeated, in their minds. The empire was on the edge. Fear had taken hold like a disease. Every sector, every fleet, every soldier felt it. The emperor, once a symbol of unshakable power, sat alone on his throne, staring into the cold darkness of space. The once mighty empire was crumbling, and he knew it. For the first time in his rule, the emperor could not hide his fear. In the war council room, the generals were silent. The once proud officers who had ordered the destruction of entire planets now whispered nervously, unsure of what to do next. It wasn't just the threat of the human fleet that haunted them. It was the fear that something far darker was waiting for them, something they didn't understand. Commander Varkin, one of the officers, spoke softly. "What if we can't stop them?" Varkin, always a calm and calculated leader, looked troubled. He had spent decades commanding the Empire's forces, but even he felt helpless. The human fleet hadn't even launched their main attack yet, and already the Empire was falling apart. The fear wasn't just in the soldiers. It was in the air. They could feel it, smell it, like a storm coming. "We have no choice," Varkin said, his voice low. "The planet breaker cannon is our last chance. If we don't use it now, we may as well surrender." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. The Empire had relied on brute strength for so long, and now they were fighting an enemy they couldn't even touch. The humans hadn't used weapons. They hadn't even shown their full fleet, but they had destroyed the Empire with one simple thing: fear. Back on the imperial capital, the Emperor stood from his throne. His advisors were scattered around him, each one waiting for orders, but there was no command to give. The decision had already been made. "Activate the planet breaker," the Emperor ordered, his voice a shadow of its former power. Varkin and his officers moved quickly. They knew that the planet breaker cannon was the most powerful weapon the Empire had ever built. It was designed to destroy entire planets, to burn them to ash. They had used it before, on enemy worlds that dared to resist. But now, they were pointing it at the human fleet, a fleet that hadn't even fired a single shot. It didn't matter. The Empire had nothing left to lose. In the deep reaches of space, the human fleet moved closer. They knew the Empire was preparing for their final stand. But they didn't rush. They didn't need to. The humans weren't afraid. Inside the heart of the fleet, Admiral Ilara watched the Empire's movements with cold precision. She knew the Empire would use the planet breaker cannon. They had no choice. But what they didn't know was that the humans were ready. The true human fleet was massive. Thousands of ships. But it wasn't their size or weapons that made them powerful. It was the fact that they fought together, that they understood the true power of the mind. They had learned to fight the fear that had crippled the Empire. Admiral Ilara stood at the helm of the flagship, watching the Empire's weapon come into range. She gave a single command: "Activate Phase 3. A low hum filled the ship. The human fleet did not charge into battle. They didn't need to. Instead, they moved slowly, deliberately, as if they were walking through a storm. They didn't react to the Empire's weapons. They didn't flinch. As the planet breaker cannon charged, the Empire's soldiers could feel it, a wave of anxiety, a deep, sinking feeling that crawled up from their bellies. They had trained for this. They had been prepared for war. But nothing had prepared them for what they were feeling now. The human fleet wasn't just a physical threat. They were attacking the mind. And that was something the Empire had never learned to fight. On the capital world, a final message from the Emperor was sent to every fleet. "Fire. Fire everything. End this now." The planet breaker cannon fired. But just as the blast of energy reached the human fleet, something strange happened. The blast didn't hit. It just disappeared. It wasn't magic. It wasn't some strange force. It was the humans. They had learned to control fear so well that they could make the Empire's greatest weapon useless. The blast, the terrifying planet-destroying energy, simply vanished into nothing. The Empire had one last chance, one final shot, but it was over before it had even begun. In the heart of the human fleet, Admiral Ilara gave a silent nod to her crew. They didn't need to destroy the Empire. The Empire was already destroyed by its own fear. The battle was over. And far away, on his empty throne, the Emperor realized the truth too late. The Empire hadn't been defeated by the humans. They had defeated themselves. The Empire was on its knees. Its greatest weapon, the planet breaker cannon, had failed. The fear that had once held the galaxy in its grip was now its own undoing. As the Empire's fleets scattered and its commanders struggled to maintain control, the truth began to sink in. They were not fighting an enemy that could be crushed. They were fighting their own fear. Admiral Ilara stood in front of the command center's massive viewport, staring out at the Empire's shattered defenses. The human fleet remained calm and composed. They had known that the Empire's weapons were nothing compared to the strength of their unity and will. Phase 4 is complete, Ilara said quietly. The Empire's grip on the galaxy is slipping. We have them exactly where we want them. Her voice was steady, but the weight of the moment was heavy. They had come this far, but the final blow was yet to be struck. The Empire was on the brink of collapse, but there was one decision left to make. How far would the humans go? Ilara turned to her second-in-command, Commander Jax. He stood at attention, his face a mix of determination and caution. What do we do now, Admiral? Ilara thought for a moment. The humans had already proven their strength. They had already destroyed the Empire's morale, shattered its leadership, and dismantled its forces without firing a single shot. The question now was whether to finish it entirely, or to offer the Empire a chance to surrender, to end the war without more bloodshed. But deep down, Ilara knew that the Empire would never surrender easily. They would either be destroyed completely or be left to rise again, their pride too strong to allow for peace. The decision wasn't just about victory. It was about what kind of victory the humans wanted. Back in the War Council room of the Empire, Commander Varkin stared at the shattered remains of the Imperial fleet on the holoscreen. He had watched the message from the Emperor one last time. It was silent, but the weight of the words still lingered in the air. Do not fail. Bring the Empire back from the brink. Varkin knew the Emperor was gone. He had not heard from him in hours. The Empire's capital had fallen silent. There was no one left to give orders, no one to stop the inevitable. The final blow was coming. The humans had already won. But still, Varkin refused to surrender. He clenched his fist. We fight. We do not go down without a fight. His officers, exhausted and broken, looked at him with hopeless eyes. They had seen enough to know that the fight was over, but the idea of surrender was too much for them to bear. Even now, they clung to the idea of victory, no matter how impossible it seemed. We can still make a stand, Varkin said, his voice shaking with uncertainty. We have one final chance. Let's gather what's left of the fleet. We'll make them pay for every star they've taken from us. But one officer, a young lieutenant, spoke up. Commander, it's over. We've lost. We can't keep fighting like this. Varkin's eyes hardened. We'll fight. We'll fight until we have nothing left. The decision was made. The Empire would make one last desperate attempt to fight back. Back in the human fleet, Admiral Ilara received the signal that the Empire was preparing to make its final stand. It wasn't a surprise, but it was still a bitter reminder of how far the Empire had fallen. They had already lost the war, but their pride wouldn't let them accept it. We could finish this right now, Commander Jack said, his tone serious. We could wipe them out, end this once and for all. Ilara nodded slowly. We could. But that's not what we came here for. We didn't come to destroy the Empire. We came to show them what it means to face the truth. The human fleet moved forward, each ship in perfect harmony. They didn't need to destroy the Empire. They had already broken it. They had already shown the galaxy that power was not just about weapons or ships. It was about unity, courage, and the strength of the mind. The Empire had lost because it had forgotten that. As the human fleet approached, the Empire's remaining forces gathered for one final confrontation. The few ships that remained in battle formation were ragged and disorganized, their crews half broken by fear and hopelessness. Varkin gave the order to engage, but deep down, he knew that this was the end. The humans didn't need to fight. They had already won, but they were giving the Empire one final chance to face the truth, to see the power of the humans, and to realize that they had already been defeated long before the battle even began. As the fleets closed in, Ilara gave the final command: activate Phase 5. Let them see the truth. A wave of energy pulsed out from the human fleet, sweeping across the battlefield. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an attack. It was the truth. The Empire's remaining ships stopped in their tracks, their crews paralyzed by the realization of their defeat. The fear that had once controlled them now turned inward as they saw the full weight of their loss. The Empire had been destroyed, not by the humans' weapons, but by its own fear. And now the final decision had been made. The galaxy would never be the same again. The final battle had come, but the Empire's remaining ships did not charge. Instead, they floated in space, their engines silent, their weapons cold. It was as if the fight had already been taken out of them. They didn't need to be destroyed. They were already defeated, and they knew it. Admiral Ilara stood on the bridge of the flagship, her face calm and unreadable. She had seen the fear in the Empire's eyes. They had lost before the first shot was fired. The war wasn't about who had the biggest fleet or the most powerful weapon anymore. It was about understanding something deeper. And the humans had understood it long ago. "We've done it," Commander Jack said quietly. "The Empire is finished." Ilara nodded, but she didn't feel the rush of victory that most people would expect. She felt something different, a quiet certainty. "We didn't come here to destroy them. We came to show them that fear is not the way to win a war." As the human fleet hovered in the distance, the last of the Empire's ships tried to turn and flee. They couldn't accept it. They couldn't accept that they had been beaten by the humans, not with weapons, but with unity, with strength of mind, and with courage. "Let them go," Ilara ordered. "There's no need to chase them. They're already defeated." And with that, the Empire's last ships vanished into the depths of space, running from the truth, running from the fear that had destroyed them. The humans had not just defeated the Empire's fleet. They had broken the very core of the Empire's power, its belief in its own invincibility. Back on the Imperial capital, the Emperor's throne room was empty. There were no grand ceremonies, no final speeches. The once great Empire had collapsed under its own weight, unable to face the truth. The galaxy, which had once bowed to the Empire's will, was now free. The humans had achieved what seemed impossible. The Empire, with all its might and arrogance, had fallen not because they were weaker, but because they failed to understand one simple truth. Fear can destroy you faster than any weapon. In the heart of the human fleet, Admiral Ilara stood, her eyes fixed on the distant stars. The galaxy was quiet now. The war was over. But the victory was not just in the defeat of the Empire. It was in the knowledge that the humans had proven something even more important. They had shown the galaxy that the strength of a species was not measured by how many ships they had or how powerful their weapons were. It was measured by their courage, their unity, and their ability to face the darkness within themselves without breaking. "Prepare to send the message," Ilara said, her voice steady. "Let every corner of the galaxy hear it." The transmission went out, echoing through the vast emptiness of space, reaching the ears of those who had once lived in fear of the Empire. "The Empire is no more. We, the humans, are the future, and we will stand united, no matter what comes next." The message wasn't just a declaration of victory. It was a warning. The humans had proven that they could defeat even the greatest powers in the galaxy, and they had done it without firing a single shot in anger. The galaxy, which had once feared the Empire, now feared the humans. They were no longer the weak species at the edge of the galaxy. They were the ones who had shown the universe what real strength was: the power to face fear, to stand together, and to never back down. As the human fleet sailed away, leaving the remnants of the Empire behind, Ilara allowed herself a small smile. The fight was over, but the real battle had only just begun. The galaxy had been forever changed, and now the humans would shape its future.